and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The civility pledge. I pledge to build a stronger and more prosperous community by advocating for civil engagement, respecting others and their viewpoints, and finding solutions for the betterment of our town.
Serenity prayer?
What's that?
The serenity prayer.
That's Serenity prayer. That's it. Oh, the Serenity prayer, I'm sorry. That's normally your part. I grant you serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
That wisdom.
It is.
You had Jeff Hardy leading in this. This is Tom Flynn. This is Jay Reichert. This is James Gardner. They're all members of the planning commission. We have Rico Young, who is our planner. And we have Catherine Watkins running the projector, and we happen to also function, but she's not running the projector as our. But the exits are obvious. You came into them, you can go out to them. The restrooms are up the stairs and to the end of the hall. The nearest defibrillator device is across the street, the fire department. And I think that's not it. Our fire extinguishers are down the hall or the back. All right, we have first two orders of business are minutes. The easy one is the first one. I forward one on any comments that you have regarding the minutes of our last meeting. Anybody have any additions, corrections, deletions? That's okay with anything. I will go approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No. It passes. Now. Our secretary, Rico, but his assistant, came across minutes from March of last year that had not been approved. Therefore, to keep the records of the town intact, we need to review it. This should be noted in our current process that none of us remember that meeting because we weren't on the commission at the time. Only James. And March of last year is a bit of a stretch. James, can you remember anything from that meeting that differs from what you see on these records?
Knowing that I was the only one that was there, I looked over it in good detail, and I don't really think that it is different. It didn't happen differently than what was on here as I read through it.
Would you make a motion to approve it?
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor? Okay, so. Okay, let's hope there's no more of those sitting out there. We're doing our public comments after the new business. And the first matter up under new business is proposed amendments to the comprehensive plan. We just passed the comprehensive plan. This committee. March and the council passed it last month, that we already have proposed amendments, which we were all promised during that thing. We're not, we didn't put anything in concrete, and this is a real reminder that we didn't. So we have a section here of the proposed amendment, and they are basically been recommended to us by a conservation organization. Among others, the South Carolina Environmental Law Project and the Coastal Conservation Union and the Friends of Coastal South Carolina, all of whom I know are good people. I contribute to all of them, and I go to their bankruptcy check. These are good people, but they are also very idealistic about things, which I understand, and you'll see some of that in here as we get through it. This was put together by one of their interns, staff attorney pending bar admission. So there will be some of that enthusiasm too, which our lawyers in attendance are well aware of their years. But the clerk before the Supreme Court, was that it? Who, me? No, yes. Come on, they're just pulling the leg a little bit. All right. So. Let's start this thing off.
Staff reviewed the changes to the comp plan, were amenable to the changes.
Yeah.
I would also state for further discussion, there should be a motion and a second on the floor.
And
To open discussion for like any of the ordinance at hand, there should be a motion and a second.
okay, I'm gonna be discuss the proposed amendments.
Second.
All in favor?
I
And now that we are legal, let's take a look what's going on here. Ah.
I have a question on section 1, number 2. How do we propose having anything other than septic dependent development? Because that's our only option, and everybody has to do it.
I thought about that and because of some BZA activity. Or was going to be, before I moved over to this committee, it's something we looked at that time, and it is basically. Communal septic, a communal waste facility, basically a small version of what Mount Pleasant has, but for a community. The white community on the door has been approved for one, though is not doing that, as we see from their plat, they're doing septics. The high school, which had been proposed for that corner, was approved by county for a similar, septic facility is doing, it's processing plant, because you can't do a septic for high schools, at least in really tough. And the issue that kept coming up is once the developer moves out and it's taken over by the homeowners association, how can the town be sure that they will maintain it and won't crash and burn? And we will have a failed system for a community. And nobody can help us out in that.
I got a question.
Absolutely.
What is the definition of a septic? What is the definition? Are we talking about a subdivision that everybody is on a septic tanks? Are we talking about single tank and a single drain field for a number of residences? I'm not clear on that.
The two that I had brought up that I knew about were a central facility.
Yeah,
Which is a treatment facility as opposed to a septic, is that?
Yep, that was exactly it.
well,
Yeah, I think even a communal septic system would still be considered a septic.
there's still septic systems, but I would say. I would be in favor of saying, yeah, and the other thing about this statement, it says. Doesn't say, it doesn't say, it says restrict. Which could mean, restrict the number per acreage. And it could also, if we want to say, well, we're not gonna have a centralized collection and a single drain field. For, for multiple residencies. I would say, yeah, we don't need that. But that's what you were referring to.
Well, that's, we ran into these, yeah.
I would say, no, we don't need that at all, but I would think we could also limit. Think about limiting or restricting, as this says, the number. On any given parcel, I mean,
That's the whole lot density question. You can take the whole septic thing out of it. By decreasing the number of units in a lot.
Or
I mean, no one's gonna, change to a septic on a 5 acre lot. I mean, come on.
Right. I think that parcel size limiting and minimum square footage would solve this problem without having to put it in. Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't have any objection to this. It's just,
Yeah, and again,
it's a non-problem.
there's no teeth to this thing, it's just something that's a
Well, that's
suggestion.
what our comprehensive plan is.
Yeah.
So we all know.
Mhm.
Okay, I like the first one, consider and adopt the use of cultural overlay zoning to reinforce culturally significant development patterns, designs, and so. I brought up the whole, heirs property thing in February, before ever turned up on council or any of that. And, got a hold of the Center for Heirs Property Preservation first time. There are a number of ways, some places in South Carolina, but more particularly in other states. Heirs property is a big deal in the Southwest because much of the property was originally Spanish. So there's a fair amount of that. And heirs property is a significant issue in certain boroughs of New York. But that's not where this is. Anyway, we have the possibility here of an overlay zone, like they have on 17 North. The homestead ordinance. A historic district ordinance. A special administrative zone, which Charleston County has just proposed for the 10-mile community. They have been calling it a settlement community. Last month, they decided they call it a special administration district. Why? I don't know. But it's another way of going about it. And the BZA approach, the Municipal Association of South Carolina gives one example of how to do heirs property, and it happens to be BZA. So I've just listed 5 different approaches. I'm not aware of any others. And this sounds good, but we actually have the answers. We just have to come up with an ordinance. And I'm finally gonna follow the wishes of council, because this is a more political question than it is an ordinance zoning question. But anyway, we're ready to go on this. And again, it's another aspirational, but I don't have an objection to it, but we already answered that question. 3, consider an adopted mining ordinance and require spacing requirements for mines. My recommendation on that is anybody who talks about mines should please read in Title 40, the SC Code of Laws, Chapter 20. It's called the Mining Act, and it's 8 pages of fine print. And it tells us everything we cannot do. And that's there are 2 kinds of, to make it real simple, there's 2 kinds of mines you can have. You can have a mining general permit. The King Tract was a mining general permit before they started this big deal. They had a 5-acre mine. They were under a mining general permit, which is 5 acres of land, 20 feet maximum. No processing on the land. And no mine on any adjacent or neighboring tract of land in the words above. Yeah, there it is. Mining general permit, that's what it's called in the SC Code of Laws. Then there is the individual mine operating permit, which is what the mining industry got. And which King moved to from their 5-acre thing to 50 acre. They went from the general permit to the mine operating permit. Mining operating permit is a quote right out of law. There are no intrinsic limitations to the type of material, affected acreage, depth, processing, frequency of other mines. I mean, they make really clear. The only counties that have successfully manipulated that, and will be my recommendation for this place, is that you can run your zoning such that it would be difficult to put in those particular zones. Dorchester is the one county and that is head on that. And they got a bunch of mines, so they sort of rezoned and restricted mines to certain zones. And they made it through. Mine industry had sued that. So, but this individual mine operating permit is. We tried to get the King Tract while I was on the BZA to put out of business. No. Okay, I will not bring anybody down. Oh, man.
So are you in favor of that, this statement or not?
I think that's I think it's fine. It also is of no consequence. The state law just blows it away. And we will need significant legal help if we are going to write into our zoning ability to steer minds away from certain zones. Because we could end up easily in court and doing this without legal advice would be crazy. I'm not, but. Number 4. About wetlands, it's mom and apple pie, but we got these federally protected lands. Everybody's aware of the Supreme Court decision in 23 that makes. Back in 2023 that makes it completely unclear as to what are federal protected lands. It used to be all the wetlands of the United States, now it's, I don't know.
That's a long drawn out subject.
Yes, it is.
And you know, you've got your federally protected wetlands and then you've got your state protected wetlands. And it looks like what we're trying to do is add some our own restrictions, but I'm all for it.
Good, you're gonna get a drafty ordinance. Okay, number 5, under conservation protected lands that include privately protected lands, when we get around to writing something on like this, I'm going to. Very strongly favor the state definition of what a conservation land is, which is a permanent injunction against felon. That's the state definition, that's how you check that. Our zone number 1 is conservation zone, and it reads any land which is in the reasonably near future not expected to be developed. Conservation organizations, it's irrelevant. So as long as we don't try to protect somebody who just wants conservation land for 5 years and sell it to the table. That's, yeah, there. On 6, does anybody wonder? Conservation residential on Bulls Island Road. We got a land development on one side, we got Francis Marion on the other side, what lots? We gotta put, how do you zone that? The council, do you have any idea?
Yeah, how does that work?
I mean, that's. You're talking about number 5.
Yeah.
right?
No, same.
Okay, thick bay.
Conservation residential.
I mean, at the end of the day, a future land use map is the recommendation, right? Like kind of what was mentioned earlier, it's not regulatory, so it would just be, updating, that map.
There is no land
For
there.
whatever's left, it had already been a PD.
Right, yeah.
It's
So,
not much, but it's in the zoning district or.
no, I mean, it's there, it seems like they're, yeah, it seems that they're. Just wanting this to be essentially a different land use classification.
Also, we have to classify UD.
I think you can, if it ever reverts or something, but like 95% of the time, PDs, especially developed PDs, stay that way, but. Yeah.
I looked at that, what land is this?
Yeah, so usually you don't find planned developments as a future land use in a. Unless, I guess if you're anticipating ones, but it's like a recommendation one. So maybe it's just to kind of do as a placeholder if that PD's ever redeveloped, to leave it as a low density, something like that, but.
Like they can rip all the houses off of there and.
Yeah, it's a long way of saying if they're asking for a change in land use designation into an already developed or an already approved feed, it's like no. It doesn't hurt, it's already.
No,
about
nothing in the comprehensive.
So-
Anything, extends.
Yeah, that one it's not really gonna change much, because we're likely not gonna see a development package from that for the next while if it's already developed.
So what would happen if that developer went bankrupt and that development went away, then we would in those lots or that.
I mean, then we would be in a conversation about vesting and all this kind of stuff and seeing if we could take a second bite out of the apple if certain things were to expire and.
So if they were to go bankrupt, they could sell the rights to somebody else.
Yeah, I
Yes,
mean, they
yeah,
could
because
sell it
the
as
easy
long, well, not
transfer
the
the
right, not the rights, it's the property, but like they're. As long as they're working on the same site, the approved site specific development plan, they can continue with that vested entitlement and. Yeah, just pick off where the other person left off, if they're still vested. For the
I told you guys,
calculation.
probably a couple of meetings ago, that. PDs, once approved by council, stay PDs. Unless the owner, who got the original PD, requests it be changed back. So that's why that thing was approved in 2006 and it's still here. And was not vested for that whole period of time. As long as you can vest for them, would have been 5 years.
Mhm.
So it expired in 2011, but the good folks in Romaine Retreat didn't know that there was this time bomb PD just sort of sitting there. And unless Mr. White retracted it, it stays. So, yeah, that's our rock and a hard place. Except Holly Hill and a couple other places have put into their vesting ordinance. And we can do the same thing. You'll do the same thing. Is that when you grant a PD, you grant a PD for a period of time. And at the end, it reverts to the underlying zone it was before PD was approved.
What's the
It's
vesting
legal.
period expire?
Huh?
What's the vesting period expire?
Yes. And it depends on how long you give them, would give people more than 5 years. But yes, that is the only way out of it, and that is to write a PD ordinance that has that expiration. Because otherwise you're sitting with the state ordinance, which you can like the reversion thing, and the whole towns have done, they've been challenged, and they've won.
Mhm.
Boom, need a lawyer for that too.
Problem is that can't apply to any PDs that have already been sent out, such as that one on Bulls Island Road, that for some reason back then they never put an expiration date on it whatsoever.
No, we didn't have that in ordinance and still don't. We got to write.
That's what caught us so hard as the planning commission prior, because everybody knew that that was a poor choice, but there's nothing that we could do. Which is what we had the other day down here across from Green Lane.
You know, they can do it looking forward.
Yes, so you get, when the PD gets adopted, which is, PDs are weird because most of the site-specific development plans are like site plans or subdivision plats. PDs also a zoning ordinance that's legislated in. But once it gets approved, you're locked in 2 years, council can change, like that, the developer is vested for that 2 year period. He can then request, he or she can request up to 5 annual extensions of that. And then in the middle of all that, the General Assembly passes these joint resolutions, like in 08, 09, we had financial crisis. 2020, when there was COVID, and like, for example, the 2021 pressed pause on any vesting periods continuing to move. It's like, it was like as if everything stopped from January 2020 until December 31st, 2023. So like if they were in year one, when it got paused, they still had a year after 2023 before they could start requesting extension. So it's, I mean, it's kind of complicated analysis for each specific PD.
So am I hearing that you're saying that even if there wasn't an expiration date on a plan development, it would expire because of the course of law? When that came before us as the prior planning commission, there was no mention of that, and it was just told to us that this thing was written 16 years ago with no expiration date, so there's nothing that can be done. Seems to me that would have been good to know when that came in front of us. I had no idea that was the case.
That there's gonna be one coming before y'all that is no longer best. There will probably be.
That's vested with PD, when you rezone the land, that PD has to be. Has to be put back into the general acreage, whatever it was, by the owner. We're not vested, they just happen to just a PD.
So what happens at the end of that time period that you were just describing that PD is valid for? What happens at the end of that time if they don't act on that PD? In your description, in your example,
You can leave it alone, just it's continues on as a zoning ordinance until it's amended. You can amend the PD, you could keep it in a PD zoning district and change things that haven't been developed yet, or you could just get rid of it and bring it all the way back. to
And that's the-
base zone.
The choice of the town at that point, since they didn't act on.
It is not, you take somebody that is like super entitled with heavy density and residential and zoning to conservation, you're getting sued. Like, no question about it, but typically the way it works is if they develop some and there's more left, you can tweak the standards, maybe less density. Your chances of avoiding a lawsuit are better if you try to work with the developer and come up with like a mutual beneficial type agreement, but if you just straight down zone somebody that had entitlements to do a bunch of houses and down zone to conservation, get sued 10 times out of 10 there. Now, they may not win, but still.
So
Yeah, you go to court there, when I did the vesting thing, I mentioned that one of my goals was that the current vesting for like you're building a house, or you're building a house, you get 2 years plus 5 additional years. But the 5 additional years are optional, it says may in the state law. And many towns, I'm gonna pick on Hollyville, but I will, and a number of others have said it's 2 years with no extensions, and it's legal. So instead of 7 years, we can make it 2. The provision for planned developments that give you years based on acreage. That provision starts off in the state code of laws as may. You don't have to adopt it at all. And the towns that I told you about didn't adopt it. So it's just the 2 years and nothing else. And it's legal.
We've got currently Illinois has the default provisions because it did not adopt the best
That's
like ordinance saying that now it says the word shall.
Yes, it does.
Until we get an ordinance in place, we gotta continue granting.
That is our job,
You know,
and we will do it. What else? Before we move on to the next one, anything else on this?
So do we think we need a motion to recommend?
Oh, no, I mean, I'm trying to get more conversation or everybody's through. Anything else anybody has to say about the comprehensive plan? You're good. Thank you.
One thing, so
Okay, I would like to, those comment period, like you to, someone proposed, that we adopt this, or not adopt it.
I make much of we adopt this and then.
Second. All in favor? You can take it back to council and say yes.
Okay, great.
The next is proposed wetland protection, which is a semi-national undertaking by a whole bunch of conservation groups. And it was evident from reading through this thing that Rico had to do a lot of additional work getting this to fit on it up.
That's correct. And I would ask, if it's amenable to the commission, since we have some applicants here for seaweed med spa, this may take a while if we want to get a motion to kind of move out of order in our agenda and address seaweed med spa, or you guys want to go in order?
I have no issues with taking care of our folks out there. But we're gonna need a 2/3 vote to do that, going out of order. All in favor of,
We have to have a motion, right?
yes,
I make a motion that we move the line item G, the subsection A. Discussion and voting to now and put it ahead of everything else that we've got on the agenda so far.
okay, we all understand what's in it, so all in favor? Okay, it is.
Yeah, and second, we needed a second on that.
Yes.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Commission. I feel like.
Redo the vote now that there was an.
Yeah.
Motion in a second. On the line item to move. subsection-
Second,
We have the vote after the second. I think that's what she's saying. So we need to stay voting.
good in order.
would you like to vote again? You moved, seconded. All in favor?
Aye. Perfect.
We good now, we can actually look at these
Yes.
plans. So we have two engineers here, so, my comments are gonna be inexpert, I'm gonna leave most of it, all of it to them. I just have a couple of questions. This is in FEMA zone, that's a non-flood zone. It's on the north side of 17, the ditches on the north side of 17 tend to flood during heavy rain. From the last time 17 was blocked, I believe, for 3 days in a row. It's in last August. August before last, 24.
Mr. Chairman, you mind if I just set up the meet or set up I'll give a brief statements, kind of setting us up for this. Do you mind? Okay, I appreciate it. So the reason that we're reviewing this is because one of the requirements of the PUD requires that the planning commission take a look at the architectural elevations of the drawing. So including the signage program. And it references some qualitative features that the elevation should have, like rusting log cabin in nature. Height requirement, and then relating it to the CW outpost building. So with that being said, just wanted to kind of tee up what the planning commission task is reviewing with is the architectural element. So
Does that mean we don't get to look at the site plan, any question about that?
that's correct.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And
When is that?
That's that was an administrative staff review.
Well, let me ask you another question. Why are they asked us to be certified in accordance with Berkeley County
No, I figured
and
that.
SCDOT standards?
Yeah, that is probably a kind of one of those template notations that needs to be updated.
Yeah.
does that have to do with the overhead wire? Is there still power?
It may be,
Middle of this.
It's on the as-built, this was
Yeah.
rating under the drainage,
It's
training and utility use.
Yeah, sometimes we have that, for example, some people
That's
say
okay.
design to Mount Pleasant water standards, and it should be kind of all known, so. And like all plans, these the construction set gets sent to Mickey Seabrook prior to permitting. Every time we get an engineered construction set, we're sending it to Mickey just to make sure that the water connections and all that good stuff are.
Absolutely, no sense to me. This is a friendly question. You have a raised septic field, which means you probably do have wetlands somewhere. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is because that section floods. And you would probably rather not have your driveway or a parking lot or a building that have water in it. So just sort of keep that in mind as you building things up. Well, we see an elevated septic field, we know you're near wetlands.
There's no weapon on this side.
It says, doesn't say it.
This is what they have,
think
that does, there is a.
Yes, I don't.
Yeah.
That don't know what.
Yeah.
No, not on the site.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
how
then
would you raise the septic if you did go out?
Because they still have burnt on it.
Oh, well, that's that we talk about engineers or something.
And yeah, and that was one of my questions is, are they proposing to pump this into that elevation or is it flow by gravity? Because the elevations look
I
off.
understand there's to be a problem involved.
Where it is, yeah.
Yes.
Do we, are we still approving?
You're the engineer, don't you?
Engineered, septic systems?
I mean, they're not restricted by any town code. Yeah,
But our comprehensive plans, they should go on this.
right, and that's again, it's like the comprehensive plan is encouraging us to make these types of policy adjustments, but. As of right now, we don't have anything prohibitions or. Septic tank, really anything that mentions the placement or location or type of septic systems.
That is true from something you're good, right?
Is this water fence on here something that's pretty?
I just want to update you to ground parking, which is permeability, I do appreciate that.
And she's,
Y'all's
is-
role here under this PB is to review all the structures that are approved, to be approved related to design and exterior construction materials and aesthetics.
Okay.
And so that's, Mr. Cobb is a good architect, he can probably talk about all that stuff. Okay.
What about, and along that vein, one of my questions was, I see that there's 3 HVAC spots and 4 HVAC spots around the building. What sort of screening is provided around those?
Planting,
Just,
again, we did put them on the back of the buildings.
except for the one on the right?
The intent is planting, whether I need to go back and add more. The civil engineer had an emergency and had to go to Arizona. Yeah, so he couldn't be here to answer some of those questions, but I'm glad to help people do.
Well, it sounds like we're not supposed to be asking those questions.
That's the architect, I mean, that's the aesthetics of the outside, that's why I did skip past some of my questions. The other was, are we having exterior tankless or are we having an interior water heater? Are we gonna see it, and if so, is there a propane tank hidden or is it all electric?
It's tankless and they're in the attic.
Okay, and how about propane storage?
No, sir.
Electric tankless?
Oh, I think that right. It is, I believe it's electric.
Okay.
Yeah, you had something about mustard.
Oh,
That was last time, not, maybe we wrong, that thing could go this way, so it's very, really nice.
these are the owners and they're also residents and they're gonna be occupying the building for the medical spots. You can speak to what's in it, but in respect to the exterior, they wanted something, pretty nice. So the stucco is actually over block. So it'll be a 3-coat system. The windows will be simulated dividing lights, so it won't be just a simple bar in the middle. The roof will be a metal roof. So they're proposing to do something. They're gonna work out the building. And they wanna build something to be kind of proud of in business.
And you don't have any kind of color rendering? What is it
I
gonna
have
be like?
something on my phone that's like.
Are we supposed to approve signage as well? Is that part of it?
You have to come back.
Yeah, we don't have this. That's- I wasn't supposed to put it in password.
We'll come back to you with that, once we get a little further down the road.
Like some neon flashing.
Stop here, stop here.
Right.
What about in the back where the garbage is, in terms of the neighbors' views of that? Is that something that's gonna be screened as well? Is it gonna be a dumpster that's serviced? It looks like it's not accessible back there. It's just gonna be cans that y'all take down. I got you.
We're gonna try to be as sustainable as possible, so the less garbage, the better.
I asked because I see the back of Tractor Supply every dang day, and it's the biggest freaking mess that I've ever seen. I'm sorry, Dollar Store, not Tractor Supply, Dollar. They're good for you.
Can I ask a question? We didn't have public comment prior to this?
No. It'll be a. It should be good.
Or it's intended to be before.
Was intended to be.
What do you think?
I only have one question. Why wasn't?
Should we have also moved the public comment to before this? Because we inadvertently put it after.
With this, as it's not. I mean, before or after, it's kind of at the discretion of the town, but definitely if there's like a public hearing item, we have that public hearing. In the middle of the discussion, as when we consider a rezoning, we have I'll give a report. We have the applicant, and then we have a set time for public comment to address any matters in the case. But yeah, in these cases where there's no public hearings involved. Typical public comment is just to address general items that may or may not be on the agenda.
So we can accept public comment
Yeah.
questions?
I think that's fine, that's fair. I think
It
that's.
sounded like
fine.
it was relating to lighting.
Yeah, I don't.
What is the plan for the lighting? Is it all downlighting and what, as we require as a town, obviously?
So the only lighting is at the front door, there's some lighting, and there's some minimal parking lot lighting that as I understand it from my electrical engineer, it's the most minimal amount per code.
To light the parking lot?
Yeah, and the other one is because
they may close out at 5 p.m., but they did one too much, so.
And in the front, you're talking about the carriage lights and the sets and doors and that's all. Gotcha.
They're saying it shows like.
He was just mentioning the minimal.
And I believe lighting is addressed in the PD.
It is.
So
It says they shall be shielded to reflect down on the ground, not out on the streets or neighboring property, no more than 5% of the illumination may be allowed above the horizontal plane of the top fixture. Lamp light should not exceed 250 watts on the full mounted light. Luminaire height shall not exceed 18 feet. Foot candle level from ground mounted fixture shall not exceed 10-foot candles at any point. Building clubhouse shall not be permitted.
Well, this was counting on that on the tennis courts, yeah. Okay. Right. They have looking to approve this.
I would just make, if there's a motion to approve, just give it the condition that they come back on the signage, because that's also part of the PD. Okay.
I want to entertain a motion to approve with a return visit for the signage.
Second.
There's no first yet.
So,
Okay. Safety, okay, stay. Okay, all in favor? All opposed. All right, back to our agenda, wetlands protection ordinance. This is a long one, yeah, but a whole bunch of comments by Rita all the way through this thing.
Most of them are gonna be formatting, I mean, do we want to go by one, do you want me to just go down the list and, or? I guess that'd be the easiest, I'll try to be quick.
Well, that's skip that I think most people have, but you've got all these specific comments, would you sort of comment on these comments? Do you think this is important or this is nothing?
Right, well, just generally, like. The findings section where they have all this very nice language about how the wetlands are important and the loss. And how development impacts and all this kind of stuff. I think it's great, but it's this is like what I would call like comp plan. This language belongs in a comp plan, like, but I think it doesn't need to really necessarily be in the ordinance, what's already, captured in the next section purpose. So, just for the reduction, I would just eliminate that or just reduce it.
I like your idea of moving it maybe to the whereas clauses too.
Yeah, also, this was
I think Kent Kraus, or Kraus rewrote it based off some other municipalities ordinance. I looked at it from a legal standpoint and wanted to get Rico's eyes on it as a planner too, because it seemed very wordy and long. When I first looked at it, I think there's probably some fixes.
yeah, and to explain that a little better, like in the actual ordinance, like whereas wetlands are important, whereas Allendale has seen the degradation of wetlands through development, whereas the loss of wetlands is a crucial environmentally, that sort of stuff, we can kind of bullet those and capture these main points. So that would be my recommendation. Moving on to the definition section, formatting thing, just one, we kind of have to do a little comparison. I unfortunately didn't have the time to do this comparison to match up all these definitions, but one, move these definitions into the terms section. There's an existing term section in the ordinance, and then also do that comparison and necessary updates to make sure there's not any redundancies or repeat definitions. But I think it's good. I think one thing to note also is like this is the wetlands definition is important because they reference the US Army Corps manual for that, which will be part of my next point. Which will be, I'm on page 8 of 16 of the actual document, which is page
6 of 16 here, 21 of 57 of what I'm looking.
Yeah.
Down the bottom of the page.
Yes.
Speaking of 2157.
And so where I'm at now is page 8 of the ordinance, page 24 of your packet. Okay. So, I actually just double checked with the senior engineer at my firm, just to make sure that these things are sort of typical using these Army Corps delineations, because what I think is. You got, Joe Blow that just wants to put a storage building in the back of his yard, and he doesn't have an updated survey, and and his property's on wetland, and there may be. What the site plan he's turned in, it may affect that, so we're asking that guy to come back with a. Survey his property, delineate the wetlands, and classify the wetlands on there, so.
It just so happens, I'm qualified to delineate wetlands. I haven't done it in a long time because, it's not, I guess my salary has gotten too high to send me out in the field to delineate wetlands, but I still know how to delineate wetlands. And there's a manual called Methodology of Delineating Wetlands. And once they're delineated, they have to be verified by the Corps of Engineers. Whoever delineates the wetlands will submit that to the Corps.
That's right.
And they'll verify the delineation. And then, but there are other, because the rules are changing a lot of the time. It'll get to the point where, okay, this is not a jurisdictional wetland, meaning it's not a federally recognized wetland, but then the state regulates other wetlands.
Yeah,
Ones that are not connected.
yeah,
Say connected wetlands. We just need to be careful that, we are clear about, federally jurisdictional wetlands, state wetlands.
yeah.
So what was your hang up on this?
It wasn't a hang up. I was just like, it was a preface. See, this is a pretty standard exercise when a surveyor does a, survey. So I don't think we're asking for anything extra. I just wanted to state that to when we get into like the exceptions area, maybe we can also look at that, because it would require us, if there is a question about are there wetlands, and then also what type, because there's different. There's 6 different maybe four different wetlands that will have to be, listed on the survey. That's just that, and that also affects our, what we require on preliminary plat, but I just mentioned it, it's not a hang up.
And you say that those things are already required on new construction.
We're gonna tweak it a little bit, because we're gonna, instead of just, it's gonna say wetland area on the plat, we're gonna require, okay, is this a riparian wetland, is it, local state or, forest wetland buffer, are you in the proximity of a preserve, which there's not many.
And who's gonna, are we gonna use the Corps' verification?
For the jurisdictional wetlands, and then non-jurisdictional wetlands also are defined under the wetlands definition. So it captures waters of the United States.
They're all waters.
Yeah, so it's kind of a catch-all. From what I read from this non-jurisdictional, it's kind of a catch-all that would capture the state and the US and that sort of stuff. So we would just, what it would amount to is just us asking the surveyor, like, hey, look at our wetlands ordinance and make sure you notate if there's wetlands on your plat, make sure you notate the right one and the right setback.
Okay.
So that's kind of what.
And who's gonna verify the non-jurisdictional wetlands? Who's gonna verify those boundaries if we have some that we say are not federally protected?
Well, the surveyor will.
Surveyors aren't all delineators.
Well, it would
So
require.
what they do is they draw the boundary
Well-
set by whoever delineated.
Well, let me back up. The design professional.
Okay.
So the design professionals would be required to do that.
Yeah, when the Supreme Court did this, they basically took all the Carolina bays. And put them in federal protection. So the state has been doing something, but I don't know what.
Yeah.
I know they've been talking about it.
I've got some people I can get some help on and advice on this, but he's right, that. Carolina Bays, because they're not connected, they're not hydrologically connected,
Mhm.
that's why they're not federally protected, but they are state protected.
Mhm.
I hope.
So it does capture, jurisdictional and non-jurisdictional.
Okay.
So. The next part two of that is. Couple of different ways to incorporate these wetlands because they're now. Is gonna be without any tidying up, and this gets adopted, there will be a conflict in the ordinance and the existing ordinance. Because in the dimensional standards section where they say minimum lot size, setback. That those types of things, there's also a wetland setback of, I think it's like 35 feet generally across town. So. We're gonna have to. Either. One, just strike that row. From the dimensional standards table in each of that, so don't mention wetland setback and be like, okay, well. You just have to follow the wetlands ordinance, but you see what I mean, just remove that row. Or. Leave the row and then just replace the number with like C wetlands ordinance or something like that, so we can. Make sure that it's captured, we forward reference it or something like that, so when we're, and then also from a readability standpoint, when you're spouting numeric. Controls on the property like, 35 front setback, 15-foot side. And then, wetland setback, that's additional, okay, C wetlands, so,
Yeah, it's like OCRM,
yeah,
the controls.
Yeah, that
And
is-
it's either 35 or 50, depending on where it is.
right,
So
we're
this could be
proposing-
50.
We're proposing 35 outside of each buffer.
it's,
The setback is 35 feet beyond the buffer.
that's current, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's state, we don't have any choice.
Mhm. They do say like, a like,
Which
Like-
line are you talking
oh,
State-
no, so it's not within this ordinance, it's within these zoning classifications, yeah.
So,
Okay,
is that correct? We're adding the setback beyond the buffer. So, for instance, on the general wetland buffer, minimum buffer of 75 feet, plus the setback beyond that of 35 feet.
No, it would replace that 35 feet.
Okay.
that's what.
Yeah, I read that as the general wetland buffer is just 75 feet from
You can
wetland.
do away with your 35 foot.
So you can
and I-
build that, you can build a structure right against the edge of the buffer.
Which is the point of the buffer.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
correct, because a buffer is inclusive of a building setback,
Okay.
yeah.
Just between you and the water, everything is.
I think there,
Wait, I think, so it says a minimum buffer of 75 feet must be observed, so you've got a 75-foot wetland buffer, but then outside of that buffer, it's a 35 feet.
Setback.
Yes,
So the setback begins at the edge.
wetland set, sorry, yes,
That's
okay.
what this says.
Yes, okay, sorry, I read that wrong, and I even made a comment earlier down in here for wetland setbacks. So yeah, 75 feet. And then,
35, which is 700.
and then they're proposing an additional, then they're proposing an additional 15 feet must be observed around all wetland buffer areas.
Well, you just said it's 35,
Well, it's more, it's struck through, so it's 15 foot, and then
Yeah.
what is your comment?
No, the existing is just the existing language is 35 townwide. And so what this is proposing is 75 feet, and then there is an additional setback from that buffer of 15 feet.
So the setback as it exists now does not include, you can.
Correct, yes,
You can take the vegetation out.
right,
Now what we're gonna do is leave the vegetation in and then set it back and above.
right,
Okay.
yes, sorry about that, yeah. And I, in that subsection B where it says wetland setbacks. Kind of towards the bottom of page 8. I did strike 15 to 35, but 15 on top of 75 is probably reasonable.
Plus 35 is overly restrictive.
Yeah.
If it's got a smaller lot, it would go.
Yeah, that's about fun. Who took it from 15 to 35? That was you. I think.
Let's put it back in
$15
this.
Yeah, I think 15 is good.
Everybody, is everybody along the Allendale River 100 feet back?
The waterway?
Yeah.
No, mine only is 35 foot setback.
To the buffer of 100 feet must be observed when wetland is adjacent to a river or tributary.
Okay, that's what here, we don't have any rivers. We got on that 3 weeks.
Now we're gonna start talking about that.
Alright, so next.
But it is a wildlife. area.
Back to your point about the guy that wants to make a shed or somebody wants to add a sunroom.
That's a long way.
Where can we put exceptions into this? Because obviously to put a shed in your backyard, you shouldn't have to go through the whole craziness of getting the survey and all that stuff.
Right, there are certain exceptions at the bottom of this ordinance. There's some. And we'll get to the nonconformities as well, but there's certain exceptions. And then also, like, the whole purpose of this ordinance is to, like, if you need an encroachment. You have to obtain this like waiver, you know, and then you would come to. You know, the town and you have an application process.
And then where would it go after that? It would just be a department level.
And we'll get there, but I want it to be a planning commission type thing. But so, and then my next comment, like under wildlife refuge, wildlife sanctuary, I think I mentioned to the. Like, or, you know, as accredited or established by state law would be just great. I put a huge paragraph for just, I think just, you know, as. In. This wetland buffers and setback A2. Just to, you know, prevent someone saying like, well, that my property is a wildlife sanctuary and I designated it.
As I said, so.
Yeah,
We got two builders here, Gardner and Artie. Are you folks okay with these setbacks?
Well, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I mean, I like the idea that there's a exception permit, section process, but it seems very arbitrary. You know, I'd rather prefer it to be something that's more set in here and, you know, somebody has a 400 foot wide lot, and if they've got some things creeping in on both sides, there's not gonna be much usable space left.
You're the builders.
I mean, to my mind, the point of the buffer is that this is how close that you can do something to this body of water or whatever that is, and by adding more on there, it seems more restrictive. If I had that piece of property, I would be sad to know that I can use half of it over and above what was already being done to protect the waterways, but it's good.
Do these buffers apply to any size lot?
No, that was a good question. Or is this just meant to be for the big?
I mean, the applicability is, I mean, it's all lots within the town of Allendale. And what you just said, and kind of this goes along kind of similarly to what we discussed about buffers. Like potentially maybe under the criteria, when we get to the actual procedure of obtaining a waiver, we can say, you know, one of the criteria that the planning commission may approve a. You know, a wetland encroachment permit would be if the wetland takes up more than half your property or a majority of your property or more than 75% of your property or something like
Okay,
that.
my next question would be, is there a way that we can legally have these come to bear more for the Pulte's and the big guys that are trying to ruin things up here and not just Bill down the road who wants to put a house on his one lot? It seems like that there should be a way to just.
Thinking about that subdivision of Grand, across from Grand Lane, all the wetlands in there, you look like that half lots.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too bad we're a little late.
Yeah, too bad we are late.
To answer your question, you probably could limit, you could probably or have the applicability tied to like lot size or something like
Or a
that.
number of lots in the plan.
Yeah.
I think that would be something beneficial to that
The
because.
shape of the lot plays a lot of it too,
Yeah.
it could be, you know, not wide and not very deep.
Yeah, on
Or
it
you
like.
could have a little tiny spot on this side and it brings the whole thing in.
Yeah, cause right now, if in that next section, applicability, going to page 9. I mean, under B1, it's application for land use or zoning permit, so that's like a catch-all. So every storage shed, every new home build, every, that's the applicability. Other than that what's, there are exceptions, but they're like for.
So we can
real
change this
stuff.
to applications for new home construction or something like that.
Well, I would say under the exceptions, which we'll get, which the exception was,
Shed to fit,
um.
sunroom,
Rick, I'll call you, you said about storage buildings, say it again.
Like, for example, if someone comes to me with a storage building and they may not have an up-to-date survey on file. They will likely have to get, or show me that and if there's a question about wetlands, like, for example, if they submit me a site plan showing a storage building and I pull up. My information that I can see on wetlands, Charleston County GIS or SCDNR, and there's a question that I may see like, oh, this might be, in wetlands, then I'm there saying. There's a question, you have to get a survey now, because I don't know what type of wetland there are per our ordinance, that sort of thing, so. It's just extreme, but I think realistic scenario.
yeah.
They're all natural buffers, and we're gonna have planting requirements.
There is some planting requirements.
Okay.
Or to leave existing
It's
vegetation,
like the point of a buffer is you don't touch it
right?
to build on it or to tear it all up to plant
Yeah.
something else in it. That's how God made it, let's just leave it like that.
And so, yeah, the exemptions start on 14, but we'll get there. But yeah, I think that's definitely in the applicability or the exemptions, you can, like Max says, you can say, if like single homes on single sites or, things like that. Base it off lot size.
That's a good idea.
That's.
And
Otherwise,
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and
so make a proposal.
but not then to be applied. To each individual site once some 50 home development comes in,
right,
but as part of the initial plan, it has to be figured out before they break it into 50 individual lots. Because then all these would apply right to that if we had that rule in there.
that's right, they would be designing their preliminary plat to the wetlands ordinance,
Mhm.
yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking of a particular lot right now that's almost 4 acres. And it has wetlands on the back end, the front is loaded with grand trees, if you come back to 150 from wetlands. Then now you're taking out beautiful grand trees, if you came out 50 feet from wetlands, probably save grand trees.
What are our buffers at the moment from well? Just the 35?
That's, I get currently,
Yeah, I think these 100 and 200 are very.
EZA requests too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I was gonna ask.
you could ask for a variance to not be so far away from the wetlands if a lot shaded size. I mean.
Well, I mean, that makes sense, if there's a process,
Yeah.
include this individual lot, I think that makes good sense.
But I come back to it could be an arbitrary thing and who's sitting on the thing and, Bill's trying to do this thing and John that's sitting on the thing just can't stand Bill. And I mean, I want to make sure that we have all those things worked out, we're not just leaving it up to, the whims of a couple of guys. I think it makes a lot more sense to have it written down. And not make it so overly restricted, people have to come and beg for it. When, like you said, if there's a lot that has grand trees here and this there, it makes sense to do it, but what's to say that they're gonna allow that guy to do that, and then he's gonna be stuck with this property he can't do a thing with.
Well, my experience with BZA's has been pretty easy on folks, but again, personnel change,
Yeah.
and. To accomplish what these two gentlemen are rightfully concerned about, how would you change the wording? What would you do?
here. And here, I would just say like this waiver goes to the planning commission.
I don't think you can take it out of the BZA. If we zone this thing, we adopt the zoning ordinance, it's supposed to be.
Currently, it's an administration, but currently how this ordinance is proposed, it's an administrative decision. That I just have to post it for 14 days. And I just let them know my decision. Afterwards,
Yeah, but you're saying to
to bring it to the planning commission,
instead.
so. I think,
Still those people. would you suggest any change that? I don't think there's gonna be personalities involved, but you suggest any wording?
In. Potentially like in the procedure, I think there's been a lot of good points. Oh, yeah, and in definitely the wording will have to be changed to say like the planning manager or the zoning administrator receives the application. He, or he or she, you know, we'll put it on the planning commission agenda, the next available meeting. That just fits it nicely within the existing kind of schedule and cadence of the PC meetings. Stuff like that.
So with you saying that those things need to be added, is this something that we're not gonna vote on today? Because those, you did say those need to be added, and it seems like to me then that's saying that this isn't a right now thing, because it needs some adjustments.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this whole
Yeah.
ordinance needs
Oh,
to be
yeah,
adjusted,
I
for sure.
just didn't know if this was up in front of us to say yes or no, or if it was just up in front of us to look at.
So council approved it at first reading at their meeting. You're required to review it and make a recommendation, the planning commission, then we'll go back to them for second reading. We told them at their meeting, this thing needs substantial changes, but you can make this a second reading, but just to get the process moving and going, checking all the boxes of getting Mel's recommendation, we'll send it here. I'll have those are paid, those have not been paid yet.
As long as we have a second shot at it.
But once we've approved it as written here, how bound are we to this? You said we can still change it.
So y'all can make a this is just recommendation, and so you can make a recommendation that. We like it with Rico's changes, or we think it needs work, or we're not gonna make a recommendation, and town council can do whatever they want. Like, y'all can recommend they not adopt it, town council could still adopt it.
Right. Back to this page 24, A1, I think that's A1 and A2, this is, I think, where Jeff and I are talking about, Jeff, and these are the ones that you're talking about as well, the A1 and A2 on page 24.
Yes.
Yeah, so right now it seems like we're at 35, and this is jumping to 75 unless there's special exemption as noted in number 2.
Correct. And with the addition that it's a wetland buffer and then there's a setback from that wetland. Which we don't have that setback as well.
I think the point of the setback is that or the point of the buffer is that we don't put it right there, and adding extra on there is odd. And I don't know what I think about that 75. I think it seems extreme, but it's not as bad as the 100 or 200. Even, I don't know where. It's a big jump from 35 to 75, but I also like wetlands.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's just so individual or law.
Yeah.
It really is, but.
Yeah, and I think where we're getting to now, in this next section after applicability under procedures. I believe there's like criteria in which. Or we could add, oh yeah, no, there it is. It's the section not in procedure, it's after procedure. There's criteria, so we can add like the wetland buffer takes significant area of the property. It will otherwise disturb other natural resources like grand trees. Like there was another one that was said that was a good idea.
I don't know how to word that, but I have no issue with 75 feet of
And
buffer,
then,
as long as we can still utilize property.
yeah,
And then, but what about the additional 15 feet?
I mean, 50 feet,
It's not much, but
that's the rule.
and then again, we can have the exception made if it's a case by case thing,
yeah,
or somebody can't do a thing on their property.
You don't wanna build a house right up
You know,
to the woods anyway, you
Right.
wanna have it set.
I just.
like you can write,
My analogy, I think, is real world, as long as there's a way to get that project off the ground, I think it's, we've got things to do, is works for you. But
maybe we leave the as written, but changed it back to where it was 35 back to 15 from that
Yeah.
plan level adjustment.
That's what.
Yeah, B1.
That's one.
Just leave it at that.
to 15, yeah, yeah.
instead of 35.
Mhm.
Got you.
I think we're all talking about the same thing.
Mhm.
So. Yeah, so the procedure, we kind of discussed. Right now, it's written that, you know, I receive an application. I post it on the website and then also some letters go out. For 14 days, and then I receive that information. And then, you know, then I make a determination, based on the ordinance. So we talked about that, potentially changing it to the planning commission. Everyone. Okay. And then the next section, which, the criteria of approval. Would you guys give, I mean, there's 10 criteria right there.
Where are we?
Where you?
Oh, sorry.
I think it's on 12 or 31.
Yeah, we're on page,
Everything.
procedure was on page 10.
Yep.
Or page 28 of your packet. And then now, yeah, at page 12 or page 31 of your packet, page 12 of the ordinance, page 31 of your packet. So we've got 10 criteria there. One, the criteria number 6, loss of wetland habitat or the loss of flora and fauna. I think that's to Commissioner Hardy's point that, you know, that criteria is potentially already in there that, you know, we could, you know, planning commission. As suggested, could say, yes. Because of your compelling narrative, placing here would prevent the loss of other trees. And also one that I thought of is like determining, like, back to the storage shed analogy. So, you know, I think it being a non-habitable structure, you know, I think this criteria, I think different criteria could cover that. You know, non-habitable structures contribute less of an environmental impact because there's not, of course, there's not a septic system that's needed, so. But I think that criteria is good unless someone sees.
Most of it looks good.
Yeah.
I always see the question, one, is this thing contiguous, so. And I didn't see them two anywhere, when we're having problems. So that, you're just saying, we're gonna send it to the planning commission instead of you have from the city. Well, what was number 1, says for this being contiguous.
I'm trying to.
All adjacent landowners.
Yes, oh, that was my notice, yeah, because it didn't really, it just said adjacent landowners and did, like, because usually there's like a radius, or is it all. Landowners that are touching this, or are you adjacent to me because you're across the street from me?
Well, I mean, for like dock permits, it's the next,
Yeah.
Yeah.
next door, so
Right.
I would say anybody contiguous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that was in the procedure.
Number 3 looks good. I can see the one thing.
Yeah,
Where is
his
it?
comment?
Is there a call out in the ordinance itself, or is that just? You know, number 1's here, number 2's here, is there a? Is it noted in there anywhere? I don't see a number 3, or are you just saying in general statement that it should be the planning commission versus the administrator?
You don't, you gotta go back to the last page.
yeah,
Is the for it?
Yeah.
yeah, one, oh yeah, I don't see, I don't actually see where number 2.
It wasn't, it wasn't, you know. There you go. That's it.
Well, that's not what he.
That's those, I'm not sure, for the page.
The page before, I got you.
Yeah, I think number 2 was just me changing, maybe just changing the verbiage from, you know, planning manager to commission. Planning commission meeting, just having the notice requirements.
And can you explain to me your thoughts on Page 12, note number 3.
Yeah,
I talked about that already.
Yeah.
If you said.
yeah, I think, also the part right there is you can have the applicant, like if town staff, wanted to. Or if this commission wanted to, like, you can make the applicant send out notification and just bring back proof that he mailed out, that they mailed out the letters. And or, and or, a posted notice could also be helpful as well.
So they just be certified mail and then posted sign.
Yeah, yeah, that could also be sufficient. It could be either or, and.
What is this needs to be a planning commission review, I think.
Oh,
That's what I'm.
no, just general, this whole waiver process, sorry. No, this whole waiver process, if someone wants to. Impact a wetland or a wetland buffer
They've
area,
got to take a look.
yeah, they just, they make an application to the planning commission. Some other correction on page 13 or just. Me just noting that if it seems that everyone's agree that this would be a planning commission decision, that plan anywhere that's like. Planning manager would just be changed to planning commission, except where the planning manager receives the application. And then. Going down to, I'm on page 15 of the ordinance. On other requirements,
They need to do the signs for themselves.
yeah,
Yeah.
like it could be like the town just has, wetland activity, permitted wetland activity, signs in the office and they come by and pick one up and post it,
And pay for it.
Well, for the application their initial application cost, which also needs to be set by council, would cover.
Oh, you were meaning that this would require the town to purchase the signs. I thought you meant this would require the applicant to purchase the signs from the town. Yeah, well. let's start
Yeah.
with sign.
Right, yeah, I would think. Yeah, this would require, I would think the town would be wanting to design it so that it makes it sure it's visible and big and clear, not just like. I know, yeah, exactly, I noticed them,
And take pictures of it coming from both directions to make sure it's really visible, because
right,
it'd be easy to photograph something to make it look visible, and nobody can see it.
yeah, so, invisible from the right away, yeah, okay, so. So, yeah, maybe that's it, yep.
Really, the only thing we changed is that 15 to 35,
Yeah.
right?
That's all I got on page 8. 24 is that B1. 35 back to 15.
Yep,
Anybody else have anything? No. And. We moved it to the planning commission and we'll close the secret.
right, yeah,
Did you pick up anything else?
Absolutely. Yeah, so as far as his recommendations, the only thing that we're altering from your recommendations is the 35 to 50, but we're also saying that we want to go ahead with all your recommendations as part of this motion to refer. Recommend.
yeah, cause a lot of it's formatting, and so the ordinance will have to be like, section this, we're amending it. In a wetlands ordinance to amend definitions, this section and this section, so we can just kind of. Tackle all that.
It'll be fun putting it in.
Yeah, cause it's got its fingers, like all ordinances, it's got its fingers in other sections of the codes.
You bet. Well, gentlemen. Anything
I move that we accept. The staff's recommendations. With the one exception of the setback to be 15 feet rather than 35.
What? Yes. Yeah, that Rico?
Yes.
We're all set with that, okay? Second. And all in favor? We will recommend that, one, because we understand this is the council prerogative, not ours. We will take that our recommendation and hopefully they will change that. All right, now we're up in public comments. Rachel, would you ready to take time?
Yes.
All right, we have 25 minutes, for public comment, no one can come up with a second comment until everybody has had two wants and have a chance to speak as. I recommend you get right to the point, I'm giving you 2 minutes, and tell us exactly what you want, exactly what you're thinking. And please address the council, the commission in general, not to the staff or any particular person on the council. Anybody who feels so motivated can raise their hand, come forward, do whatever. Or if we have completely talked you into submission, we will accept the extra 25 minutes.
No, that's not.
Susan, I will never talk to you into submission. There's certain things that just can't happen in my life that I just. All right, seeing no comments, the public comment section has ceased.
Any direction to close public comment?
No.
No. So we're under old business, we've done the city vet spa and allowed those nice folks, including the architect. To move on, assume he's happy with things. And we will finish off, we are now 1 hour, 20 minutes into our meetings, if our meetings get to 2 hours. I'm gonna call for adjournment, it will not get to 2 hours because it's self-education, which is relative easy. Are you ready for adjournment?
Sure.
Okay.
So we were, I guess we're starting to look at what should the maximum impervious surfaces be throughout the town. And basically looking at what Charleston County does and what we've got on the books now. Typically, Charleston County has 40% of the lot as the maximum impervious surface. And that's based on recommendations in Charleston County Stormwater Manual. Now, so I did a little calculation with that. But then I'm also looking at this agricultural general agricultural, where it says maximum percent lot coverage is 30%. Is that actually what's in our ordinance?
We're pretty, I think it's 35% is generally the minimum townwide.
Okay,
That's
Yeah.
the maximum.
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 So, but just looking at, the Charleston County's 40% recommendation. And with a 300 or 30,000 square foot lot. That works out to be 12,000 square feet is the maximum, at 40%. Now, if we're gonna take that minimum lot size up to 1 acre. I would suggest that we could reduce that percentage to. It actually comes out mathematically to 27.5%, but I would say, if we're gonna have a minimum lot size of. Acre, and we could go 30% or even 25% as the maximum impervious coverage.
So basically, you're saying. Well, I think we all feel intuitively, it's the bigger the lot. So less percentage, smaller the percentage, yeah. Another advantage of larger lots.
And would that be done presumably by a table, I would guess, who's about this many acres to this many acres, this percentage?
I think we can zone, because we have to establish the acreage.
If you piece property, some people are Walmart on.
Yeah. It'll be, you'll vary the zone, in other words.
Yeah, zoning and lot size.
Okay. Our builders have an comment?
I mean, that's smart.
My one comment is like, I think we need to maybe write an impervious surface definition.
Definition, yeah.
Cause right now it's just like.
Definition.
What's covered by a building or paving, so
Yeah.
pools. Concrete asphalt driveways and buildings and structures is, generally what's, but yeah, I think that's.
Do we not have the, do we not have a definition there now of what it is?
I'm sure there's a definition in Charleston County's
Mhm.
comprehensive plan.
When we put together our ordinance, it'll give you a regular.
It would have been.
And the one thing about that is a lot of times gravel is considered impervious, but
Yeah, it should be considered pervious, right?
well. It's considered pervious,
Mhm.
but a lot of gravel driveways get so hard packed that you just nothing get through it.
So, say, what about, interlocking pavers, sand-based pavers?
I mean, they're good in theory. I've seen a lot that don't look so good.
No, I mean, as far as pervious, impervious.
Well, you know, the other way you could go is. Almost like a curve numbers or a percent impervious, you know, everything that isn't completely impervious or completely pervious. So what you could do is rank different materials. Like for their degree, which would complicate things slightly.
But I'm sure somebody else has already done it.
Yeah.
You can go and find one and copy that, yeah.
Keo has been debating, looking at ordinances for a couple of months now, and they still haven't decided. Because builders come and talk about all the different types of materials, percentages, just like you were talking.
And salesmen will come in and say, oh.
Yeah.
Ours goes in great and you never have a problem with it.
I think Alabama says a new rule though, if you're, like, for all new driveways or renovations of driveways, you gotta use pervious material.
Yeah.
So if you had straight up concrete forms, not anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's, we're seeing that in new ordinances, everyone.
The final pervious.
I think they do, I don't know, I think they see if it's updated.
Stop it. Copy and paste.
So it's gonna be devised on how big the lot size is. And so the percentage will vary by zone, and we will get a definition of impervious services acceptable to the tax.
By zoning, you mean by zoning classification.
And I think we ought to look at the possibility of having, you know, something that's completely impervious. You know, let's keep it simple, something that's completely impervious, something that is pervious, or something that's 50%, you know, like somebody puts down limestone and it gets so hard to pack, you can't consider that impervious. I mean, pervious.
Oh,
Yeah, so I think we ought to look at it that way when we write it.
when you're running the ordinance.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah, that's a bar of C, that's gonna be like, that.
Yeah,
Okay,
y'all feel like that's a good approach.
thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Got anything on buffers?
Yeah,
I really appreciated this med spa, folks. I mean, they've got a nice buffer there. Did you see the depth of 20 feet wide?
well, they,
National vegetation, that was cool.
Well, they're required by the PD, but also, yeah, it's replicated off of what's already required for Highway 17.
It's a nice buffer.
Yeah, but they did up I think they upped the composition requirements in the PD.
Yeah.
it was kind of confusing because they had one buffer on the front, and then different buffers on the sides and different setbacks.
That helped with confusing. Is that what they did? Yeah.
I think they had a setback from agricultural parcels and they had to put those side setbacks on them.
Okay.
And because the driveway in the parking lot is gravel, that was amenable inside the big, like, gravel as well.
The drive, yeah, the drive.
We're allowed to.
Yeah, the drive through cuts are, yeah.
Okay.
Those exemptions.
Long Square Road between 17 and the end of the essentially the plantation there. On one side, you got basically a farm and preserving historic property. And on the other side, the reason they are able to make that historic road is it's an entire wood, it's a wooden fence the entire way. And there's no openings except for streets in that open fence. So they were able to get a designation as a historic or rural road. Now that's a county designation.
See,
Yeah,
that's cool, yeah.
and I would like to try that for Dorf. We don't have a chance on CD right now, I mean, cash out of the bag. But it would really be nice to not drive down the road and be looking right into the neighbor's yard. That's why buffers are so important.
Some bullet points from our meeting was, you know, like composition, and spacing, because you can with like triangle spacing or tiering different elements, so you're not just planting things in a straight line. With a kind of, you know, with good spacing and composition, you can make even a smaller buffer more opaque. Substitutions where people may have difficulty leaving, you know, if we increase the buffer, let's say to 50 on seaweed or Highway 17, people may have some difficulty doing that, maybe some, hey, you can build a brick faced CMU wall with some plantings in front of it or something like that, or a nice fence with some plantings in front of it. You know, you're still capturing the opaqueness. And then also, like, we were kind of spot checking, just like what could be potentially commercial properties on Highway 17. And, you know, if the buffer requirements took up, you know, more than 25 or 30% of the property, then, you know, there could be some reductions.
And who would that be the Board of Zoning Appeals?
Or just it would just be back down to 25%. So like, let's say the buffer requirements took up 30% of the property, the zoning administrator could say, okay, we can reduce it to get this to 25%. So it doesn't take up more than 25%.
So we always want a buffer there
Right,
for our citizen,
yeah,
keep going through, makes it look more fair.
that's right.
I think we all agree on that.
And so again, I looked at, put on the buffer, we looked at, you know, the county's comprehensive plan and looked at. What they had already designated as buffer width for some of the roads in the area, like Seaweed Road, Door Road, Highway 17. And for Highway 17 North, they've got a 75-foot buffer. Door Road, 50-foot, Seaweed Road, a 50-foot, Steep Creek Road, a 50-foot, which Steep Creek, we ought to maybe consider something bigger.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Yeah, because, yeah,
As opposed to that.
but then, I put down everything else as a minimum 35-foot buffer for all our roads except. Well, all the main roads, and then a 25-foot buffer for unnamed roads. Any road buffers, that's just a baseline, my thoughts to start off with.
And I've got one thing to add to that we forgot to discuss is this town center space. I think it should be less there because that's the plan in the Clemson came up with had things that may or may not be closer to that. And we should probably put something in for that, because if that's going to be a town center, some kind of spot. That it might be restrictive and not allow that to happen as planned by Clemson.
But yeah, well, in the comprehensive plan, they have different buffers for those nodes, right? The town center node. I believe there might be a different, I have to go study that a little bit.
And I also don't think that there's any, like, in the comprehensive plan, I don't think that there is a town center noted anymore. I think there's like.
That's
residential-
like related history.
Yeah, or something, so I don't think that they have that anymore. I don't think that that's a vision of the county.
Right.
I could be incorrect, but that's my understanding.
But yeah, if it's not there anymore, it doesn't matter.
All right. Well,
That's all I got. That's what we're just talking about. And, one other thing about the buffers is that I would suggest we use the county's landscape planning schedule. For those different size buffers.
good luck. Sounds good to you. There are various lists out there, the Harlem Bill uses the, Honor Society's list. There's a lot of lists out there, there's a Southeast list, there's a Nature Conservancy has a list of all natural stuff within South Carolina. Vegetation.
And well, our schedule would just. Prescribe canopy trees, understory trees, and shrubs, and then we could pick those.
They just refer to the list, yeah, they don't list them anywhere. Okay, do we see if this thing projects and maybe we can turn the lights down a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So,
So, Our sort of powerful projector. Takes about a day to warm up.
No, it's already on, that's not supposed.
It's already on? Oh, Jesus.
Well, like, I meant, like, it's on
Is that? Oh.
That good?
I got
That's the ambiance, right?
Stay with me, friend. Very good, is it gonna be the paper right here?
You know,
Well, theoretically, when I was here, the key had projecting there.
it was,
It is.
Yeah. Okay, so we got some additions on here, so. Where they.
This, well, this is your sharing with everybody watching at home, so.
Oh, okay. Well, everybody at home, hi. All right, this is the flood sources and all the knowledge everybody knows about. The firststreet.org is a commercial organization that has more climate data than anybody anywhere, including the US government. They're a function of the insurance industry, and if you want to buy their materials, you're going to pay dearly for it. But if you want to know about your community, this is the way to do it. Basically, this is from last year, and they said 42.5% of the properties in Allendale are FEMA rated in a flood zone. Okay? And because of global warming, and we're not gonna get into a debate on global warming, it's gonna be 51, essentially 52% in 30 years. But that's how many people require flood insurance in Allendale, and that means federal flood insurance. And you can't get a mortgage without federal flood insurance if you're benefiting, so. Okay, let's see the next one. Aha, this is directly out of FEMA. And I'm gonna talk about flood zones. Share this thing. We have VE, AE, AO, AH, A. Shaded and unshaded X, all within our town. If you're in unshaded, if you're shaded or unshaded X, you do not need FEMA insurance, but it's in there. You have it. If you're in an A zone, you are required. We have properties in the BE, those are the people who get hit with wave heights up to 3 feet, or over 3 feet, it's just. I would not want to live there, but we have a lot of property here, and it's property right on the coast. And then very close to the coast, 3 to 1.5 feet, that's AE. And behind AE or VE will be a number. And the number tells you how far the bottom floor of the place is to you. There are AEs in, when I look through our town, from AE 8 to AE 18. And VE usually starts at around 15 and goes up because they're right on the coast. So. The closer you are to wave action, the higher your AE number will be, or VE number will be. These all have a 1% chance of flooding, so that's 1% a year or 100-year floodplain. That's what they call it. The shaded X is between 100 and 500-year floodplain. Okay, it's between 1% and 0.2%. Insurance is not required. Most people have it. And then there's the unshaded X, which is above the 500-year floodplain, so it's less than 0.2%. That is where I am, actually. This is a special flood zone hazard area, that's and everybody in that requires insurance, that's just how it ends. This basically marks the end of the wave zone. All right, so there it is. Next one, please. I'm just trying to get some definitions down here. Okay, so the high risk zones are A. And we have AB, which is what most of them are, A, H and A, O are, basically ponding. And if you've been in downtown Charleston after really heavy rain and the whole, many streets are flooded, that's because the whole center part of Charleston is an A, H. Passive flooding, passive ponding from water coming in from the sky. All right, these you can get from the FEMA map, so if you go to FEMA.org or .gov, excuse me. You will basically, and I will give you an even better address on the next slide, you will be able to tell where you are and what your rating is. The unfortunate part is that most of Charleston County and most of Wallendorf is not a V or an AD or an AH or an AO, they're an A. And there's no number after it. You have to get that number from Charleston County Flood Management. So you have to call them up or go online and they will give you your flood number. And it'll be a lower number. So A's have not been rated, straight A's have not been rated by FEMA. They're rated by your local counties, and Charleston is part of counties. And that's the majority of you folks out there, your A's. Charleston County will tell you what your risk level is. And here is
What's the
the
numbers like? So mine, I just looked mine up, on zone A, but it said EL10. What's that?
That's your lowest score.
Well, that's the capital base flood elevation is 10.
Yep.
So you have to build to 12, finish what we're supposed to 12.
Charleston County puts 2 on.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost so.
Yeah, 10 good.
See, we helped you here. And 10's pretty good, right? Then there's this zone X, which is a 100 to 500, that's the zone X shaded. Why the heck shaded or I don't know, but that's what they call it. The old number used to be B, if you've got an old document. And then there's the unshaded. That's the above, and there's no flood insurance required there. In fact, my flood insurance is the same as if you were a lockout. So you get an unshaded X, you're good. But most of Wallendorf is in A, straight A for one of these A things. All right, next one. Okay, so if you go home and you go to FEMA site and you put in MSC or the Flood Map Service Center. And you put in the first thing up will be your address. You put in your address, it will show you your land, it will tell you exactly what your flood zone is. And it will show you the properties around you. That's it. That's where the insurance companies go, that's where I go, with everybody. Real easy. I mean, right there on the website. And if you were just an A, the flood services at charlestoncounty.org, send them a note, they send them a request and they will get back to them. They are really nice people. The head of that group's name is Isabella, and they are nice and they will get back to you. And hold your hand through things that you can get. Many of our titles have flood elevation certificates. Much of Charleston County was surveyed officially in the 1970s. If you don't have something from them and you don't have it looking on map and you don't have it from Charleston County, you then have to get your property surveyed. Or if you think you have been misclassified, if you can get a certified surveyor. To prove that you're higher than what they've got in the maps, you will lower your insurance rate. That's what I do. All right.
When was the last time they redid it in Charleston County, you know?
It was just a few years since.
Berkeley was 2018, I remember, because it saved me a lot to find just about remember that.
You bet. We're now looking off of FEMA 2021. Last slide, please. No, not the last slide, next to the last slide. This is what, when you get to the FEMA website, you will see, well, I expanded it just because here we are. There's Door Road, there's Door, and there's C17. So you just see how they do these things. You see the VEs out here, you see the AEs and something. And then this stuff basically is all A. If you see a ground A, it doesn't have a height to it because you gotta call Charleston County. All right, and then these are not in floodplains, or they're in unshaded exits or whatever. So if we have a hurricane, this place shouldn't be too bad here in the city. We have to leave the area, but it's not bad. And that's exactly what you'll get. They'll have a red spot on this map, and it'll tell you where your house is, you come down and look at your property, like a really good area to match this. Or you can expand it out and look at all your neighbors. Okay,
At least we've done 2021. This is the
Yeah.
latest.
it's the latest things. Okay, basal flood elevation, that's what the AVE with the number behind it means. Okay, that. Charleston County and Allendale have basal flood elevation plus 2 feet. So you have to go 2 feet above the basal flood elevation, that's called the design flood elevation. And that's where we are, and 2 feet is required by housing and urban development. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mae, and the VA on mortgages. So BFE plus,
That's the lowest finished floor elevation.
yes. And habitable floor. And it's, some people call it freeboard. Okay? Here's where the rubber meets the road, this is something I was not expecting to find, and I got this, next slide. And the last one. Okay, community rating system, this is a voluntary rating system that towns, counties, or whatever can apply for. And they get a FEMA rating of their community, and that rating applies everybody's federal flood insurance, everybody in that town, county, whatever. Okay. Here we are. And our rating is a 6. A rating of 1 is wonderful, a rating of 10 is you're a swimming pool essentially. So here we are, up and down, we're 6. Charleston County is 2. That's where I started thinking, what? So, I called up Charleston County people again, there's a fellow, it's the person there, and I said, how did you do that? Well, what is happening is what happens all the time and every other thing, and that is communities are gaming the FEMA system. They're reading their criteria, and then they're going and changing specific things that they can to try to diminish their rating, and hence the amount that their residents are paying for federal insurance, okay? And that's what they've been doing. So I said, well, how come, we're in Charleston County, you do our roads, you do our ditches, you do, well. So she said, okay, I'll tell you what we're doing, and she said she would go through their books and send me a list. First thing they did is, and the most important thing to FEMA is open space. They managed to convince FEMA to count all of Francis Marion Forest and all the golf courses. That's how Hilton Head has a lower rating than a better rating than us. They got them to count their golf courses, but you got a petition to do that. Now, we ain't got no golf courses, right? But we got the Birds of Prey Center, right? We've got that 1,000 acres of nature conservancy sitting on them. We've got this county greenbelt park. We've got our park. We've got a lot of free space, and we have within our footprint a lot of Francis Marion Forest. But it doesn't count unless you report it to FEMA. You have to report it to this program. If you don't report it, they don't give you any credit. Guess who hadn't been reporting it? Anyway, so open space. This is design flood elevation, which you just learned. Hilton Head is a design flood elevation of basic flood elevation plus 3 feet. She says just by raising it 1 foot, you significantly diminish your risk. Now, I don't know how much it costs to raise a house that you're building. This is an existing property, 1 foot. I don't think that'd be a whole heck of a lot, but a GFE of 3. Base of flood plus 3 is looked as gold by the.
Building permits come from Charleston County, so what controls do we have?
Nothing right for
Charles
us
County got it too with
They have-
what they have, so we
Yeah.
can
We
get
we can add on it. Stormwater,
What is this number up here?
Okay, sorry, my fault. Every member, every person in Omaha who has federal flood insurance gets a 20% discount automatically on the flood insurance. Because you have to get ready to, everybody in Charleston County gets 40% discount. Susan, I bet when you had all these people sign up to be annexed by Hollindale, they didn't know their flood insurance rate was going up.
Never know, we do not.
Yes, we don't, and we go out and tell them. Anyway, so, we've got a potential, of paying 20% less, everybody in town on their flood insurance. Or whatever,
and that's something that the town has to initiate.
yes, you have to sit down, enumerate everything that you've got. You have to ask the community rating system, and there's some person in from FEMA who is in South Carolina, just come to the community and we'll see what you've got and change or not change your rate. Anyway, I'm gonna let the administration figure that out, but I'm just bumped into this and I'm wow. Anyway, impervious surface restrictions, as we just heard, they're really big on that. Retrofitting or relocation of affordable housing, you probably know that FEMA lost about a third of their funding under the current administration, and they are funding this anymore. There is a state program, but it doesn't have a lot of cash in it, and unless you're a rich town, you can't do that. And public education, and they are really big into public education. The Berkeley, Charleston, Dorchester, Tri-County Emergency Services puts out a page really nice booklet every year. And Charleston County now distributes it to everybody at all their public venues. And that particular group also does community talks of an hour duration on minimizing your flood risk. And FEMA counts that as public education. And they give you credit for it. So I just running into things with Isabella about what we could do. I'm not gonna do it, but it, 20% off of everybody's flood insurance ain't bad. Okay? That is that presentation. Very long. Closing remarks. I don't have it. Whoa.
Susan, could you turn that light on? Yes. Thank you.
Does anybody have anything else you want?
Move for adjournment.
Did you say something? Move for adjournment? A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
How many was?
Hey, so, this